This episode is brought to you by the Kirtland Partnership Committee. For 30 years, they've been dedicated to supporting, growing, and preserving the Kirtland National Security Complex. They work tirelessly to enhance military readiness, foster community partnerships, improve quality of life, and promote economic development right here in New Mexico. Join their mission to ensure that Kirtland remains a cornerstone of national security and a key provider of quality jobs and investment for all of Greater Albuquerque. Together, we can make a powerful impact. Kirtland Partnership Committee, proudly shaping the future of our national security for 30 years.
Let's extend the promise of New Mexico to every corner of our state. And let's guarantee that collective and enduring legacy for which we have all fought so hard. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the great state of New Mexico.
Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham delivered her State of the State address on Tuesday, with the bulk of her speech focused on crime and public safety, drawing both applause and criticism from Democrats and Republicans alike. And New Mexico has joined several other states around the country in suing President Donald Trump over his executive order to end birthright citizenship. Journal reporter Oliver Uyttebrouck has the latest on the story and joins me to discuss it. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. I'm Gino Gutierrez, and I'll have more on those stories in a couple of moments, plus a look at the Journal's other headlines and Albuquerque's weather forecast, coming up on the leading news. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham delivered her State of the State address on Tuesday during the opening day of the 2025 legislative session and highlighted progress in reducing poverty and proposed new measures to combat crime, which she describes as a, quote, state of crisis. Entering her final 60-day legislative session, the Democratic governor unveiled plans to help businesses with security costs and provide tax exemptions for fostered parents and grandparents raising grandchildren. Public safety dominated her 50-minute speech, as Lujan Grisham called for stricter legal accountability for violent repeat offenders, earning a rare bipartisan applause.
Too many of us simply don't feel safe in our communities, and that is absolutely, frankly, completely unacceptable.
While some of her proposals, like detaining violent crime suspects pre-trial, face constitutional concerns, top Democrats are working on complementary crime and behavioral health bills. Lujan Grisham delivered her speech amid protests and rallies, with officials including Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller and former U.S. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland in attendance. Haaland, a potential 2027 gubernatorial candidate, received significant applause from Democratic legislators. Lujan Grisham lauded her administration's, quote, 6 years of success, emphasizing improvements in New Mexico's credit outlook and poverty index. She also shared the inspiring story of Miss New Mexico Mackenzie Sydow, who benefited from the state's free tuition program as evidence of the progress in breaking cycles of poverty.
And moving the needle this far, this fast on child poverty is so monumental and so historic an achievement that I want to just call out. We did this, the legislature, our bipartisan, effective, dedicated, direct work for New Mexicans, and thousands of these families finally are breaking free from centuries-old cycles of generational poverty. We did this.
Despite this achievement, the governor also acknowledged challenges, particularly in child welfare. She proposed independent reviews of the Children's, Youth, and Families Department and increased funding to address high workloads and better serve vulnerable families despite the recent increases in spending.
We can no longer ask social workers and others to manage huge caseloads. And when they do that, families and kids don't get the attention that they deserve.
And amid a $13.8 billion revenue windfall fueled by record oil production, Lujan Grisham advocated for, quote, smart choices while outlining initiatives like state-sponsored fire and medical malpractice insurance programs. She also pushed for codifying net zero emissions by 2050, which drew mixed reactions from both Democrats and Republicans. The governor's plans, while ambitious, have drawn criticism from Republicans for insufficient acknowledgement of the oil and gas sector's contributions to the state budget. Following the State of the State address, New Mexico Senate Republicans criticized the governor's approach to shared priorities, particularly her methods to addressing crime and behavioral health. Senate GOP leadership pointed to their own long-standing efforts on crime solutions, such as enhancing penalties, tightening pretrial detention laws, and combating human trafficking. They argued that past proposals would have been blocked by the governor's party, referencing a summer special session on crime that ended abruptly. Majority Floor Leader William Scher emphasized the need for, quote, certainty of punishment and criticized the focus on behavioral health, noting it takes time to develop the necessary infrastructure and that New Mexico lacks sufficient practitioners. Senate Minority Whip Senator Pat Woods expressed skepticism about bipartisan cooperation, despite being invited to co-sponsor a medical malpractice insurance bill aimed at reducing costs for healthcare providers. The GOP also opposed the governor's plans to reform the Children's, Youth, and Families Department, which included hiring oversight experts and creating an independent agency to resolve complaints. Scherer argued that additional government programs would not address systematic failures.
We're not protecting our children. And so her solution was to create another government program. When I think the government programs are what's failing us, and so we need something else. We just need to figure out what's going on in CYFD, and I think we do know what's going on, and really put our effort into protecting the children, because we're not.
Republican priorities for the session include reinstating local school boards, rolling back electric vehicle mandates, and reducing small business regulations, while Democratic House Speaker Javier Martinez urged bipartisan collaboration, emphasizing respect and civility in debates for the benefit of all New Mexicans.
It's ridiculous. We're the only country in the world that does this with Birthright, as you know. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. But, we'll see. We have very good grounds. People have wanted to do this for decades.
With a stroke of his pen on Monday night, President Trump signed an executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship. The 700-word executive order argues that the U.S. Constitution does not automatically confer citizenship to all children who were born in the United States. In response to the order, New Mexico's Attorney General and 17 others from around the country have sued President Trump to block this executive order from going into effect. With more on this story, I'm now joined by Albuquerque Journal reporter Oliver Uyttebrouck, who's been following it. Oliver, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Oliver, as we established at the top, New Mexico and 17 other states have filed a lawsuit against President Trump's executive order. What are they exactly challenging here?
Well, basically, there are 17 states plus New Mexico in this lawsuit. There's another 4 states that have filed a separate lawsuit against this particular order. So it's broadly opposed by attorneys general. But basically, they argue that Trump is illegally trying to change the meaning of the 14th Amendment. They're trying to eliminate a guarantee of citizenship for U.S.-born children, which is decades old. It's been fought over in courts for many decades, and birthright citizenship has been in existence in the 14th Amendment since 1868.
And Oliver, let's backtrack a little bit, because you just mentioned that the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868, but who does it affect and why was it created?
Well, it was created after the end of the Civil War. It was intended to provide and ensure that African Americans would have full citizenship in the United States. It has been hashed out in the courts for decades, and it has been interpreted to mean that anyone who is born in the United States is a citizen of the United States and can't be denied citizenship, even if they're born to foreign parents.
And Oliver, another thing that really gets to the heart of this lawsuit from these states as well is the officials are asserting that the president lacks the authority to unilaterally rewrite constitutional protections, correct?
Yes. I mean, they're saying that Trump is basically trying to change the 14th Amendment without going through the amendment process.
And Oliver, while we wait for the lawsuit and the legal system to play out here, President Trump's executive order takes effect in 30 days from Monday when he signed it. What would be the widespread impact of this executive order for the public?
Yeah, so the order basically says that children born after February 19th will be affected by this order. And it's hard to know how many children that may be in New Mexico. About 9% of New Mexico residents are foreign-born, and about 6% of U.S. residents, U.S.-born residents here in New Mexico lived with at least one immigrant parent in 2022. That's about 113,000 U.S.-born residents in New Mexico who lived with at least one immigrant parent. Now, how many of those? Well, none of those people would be affected because the order hasn't gone into effect yet, and it won't until February 19th. But it provides sort of a gauge of how many New Mexicans might be affected.
So still a lot of moving parts with this lawsuit and the executive order itself. Albuquerque Journal reporter Oliver Uyttebrouck with the latest. Thank you so much, Oliver.
Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it.
If you like hearing all of the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal here on the Leading News, consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal. You can check our show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription and keep up with all the latest news from New Mexico's leading news source. In other headlines from the newsroom, advocates are pushing once again for a statewide paid family and medical leave program here in New Mexico. The bill, which failed by 2 votes in 2024, is back for the 2025 legislative session. Supporters say it would provide much-needed paid leave for workers, while opponents, including business leaders, argue it imposes financial burdens on employers. With a shifting political landscape, the bill's fate remains uncertain. And Dale Esparza, CEO of Esparza Digital Plus Advertising, will serve as chair of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City's Denver branch in 2025, in addition to his role as chair of the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce. As chair of the Denver branch, Esparza will represent Wyoming, Colorado, and northern New Mexico, discussing local economic issues and contributing to decisions impacting interest rates. His expertise will support New Mexico's growing economy, influenced by oil and gas revenues and the state's unique business landscape. Looking for something to do today? Craft your own charming creation for your next great read during Bookmark Charms at the Central and Unser Public Library from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And it's Bring Your Own Board Game Night from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Planta Coffee. Lastly, a brain game trivia is happening at the Canteen Brewhouse from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Now taking a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast. Today you can expect sunny skies with a high near 47, and this evening mostly clear with a low around 13. To keep up with all the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal, you can visit our website at abqjournal.com. For the Leading News, I'm Gino Gutierrez.